The sterile carpet of the office felt like a dead zone beneath my feet. I had just closed the $25 million real estate deal. The signatures were dry. My hand was steady as I walked into the corner office, the place my wife, Sarah, occupied as CEO. I had done the work. The commission was mine. I smiled. "I can't wait for my commission," I said, a rare moment of genuine professional pride. She didn't smile back. She laughed, a short, high, brittle sound of pure contempt. "Commission? Oh no, David. I gave it to Matt." Matt, her new star associate and her constant shadow, stood just outside her door, his suit too tight, his grin arrogant. I felt the blood turn to ice. The betrayal wasn't the theft of the money. It was the declaration of my worthlessness, delivered with a casual cruelty only a spouse could manage. I walked straight to HR. The administrator, a nervous young woman, confirmed the paperwork. My name wasn't even on the consideration list for the bonus. "Matt handled the final outreach," she mumbled. The lie was institutionalized. They didn't just steal the money, they erased my contribution. I walked past Matt's desk. He leaned back, adjusting his expensive watch, enjoying the spectacle of my professional annihilation. "Forgot to mention it," he drawled, his eyes challenging me to react. The challenge was accepted. My emotional core, which had been storming, suddenly went still. This was not a moment for screaming. This was a moment for precision. The conflict was no longer a marriage dispute. It was an act of corporate espionage fueled by marital spite. She wanted to hurt me financially. I would hurt the structure that enabled her. That afternoon, I cleared my desk. The process was ritualistic. I didn't take personal effects. I took the two items that mattered, my laptop and an encrypted flash drive. I was the only person in the firm who possessed the source code for the proprietary due diligence software. This software wasn't just accounting, it was the entire foundation of the 25M deal. It contained the real-time, complex tax liability projections that the buyer's financing depended on. Without my live key, the buyer was sitting on a mountain of data that would expire at midnight. Nobody knew I was the architect. They just saw the output. I sent a resignation email that was a single, curt sentence. I walked out without waiting for a response. I didn't need severance. My severance was already running on a secure server. I drove across state lines and checked into a motel room. I spent the next 24 hours watching the transaction clock. I had only to wait for the natural consequence of her greed. At 3 p.m., the buyer's chief counsel flagged the internal escrow agent. They had hit a wall. The final guarantee data, the numbers my software provided, was inaccessible. Panic began to bleed through the financial wires. Sarah called. I rejected the call. Then Matt called. His voice was frantic, stripped of all bravado. He sounded like a child who had lost a toy the size of a mountain. "David, please, the buyer's funding is conditional. The firm is going to be hit with a massive penalty if we can't provide the current liability report. Sarah says you wrote the core code. Where is the key?" I answered the third call. "Matt," I said, my voice quiet, flat. "The key is only necessary when the projection is honest. I designed the algorithm to prevent internal fraud." I let that word hang there. Fraud. He realized I was not just a developer. I was the designated prosecutor. "Sarah promised you the commission," I continued, my voice gaining a terrible softness. "Did she also promise you the $5 million penalty the firm now owes the buyer for failing due diligence?" The silence on the line was thick with the weight of his devastation. He understood. Sarah didn't just give him my commission, she handed him the liability for the failure of the entire deal. I executed the final move. I sent the regulatory board a single encrypted file. The access log showing that the final, critical data had been purposefully deleted by Matt's administrative profile just minutes after I resigned. I hung up. I did not wait for the inevitable screams, the legal chaos, or the collapse of her corporate empire. They had fought over the small prize, the commission, and I had vaporized the principal. Sarah's credibility was gone. Matt's career was over. Their relationship was now bound by shared financial ruin. I looked out the window at the distant city lights. No anger, no tears. Only the profound, cold clarity of a man who had been used as a tool and then turned that tool into a weapon. They thought I was disposable. I was the foundation. I walked away from the deal, unemployed, having achieved a net zero emotional transaction. I had been betrayed by my wife, the boss. I returned the favor by deleting the boss. I was finally free.